the perception that inequality is by and large on the increase is correct. It's also correct, as he pointed out, that most of those increases occurred in the 80s and 90s, and there was some flattening in the 2000s. Now, the conventional story up until then was that inequality is rising because of two major factors: economic globalization, growing competition from the newly developing countries, from Southeast Asia, from China, and so on. That was one major factor, that low-skilled labor could be done much more cheaply there, so that we were losing jobs to those places. And another factor was technological change, that robots, computers, and so on were replacing people who did work, and mostly low-skilled work, that it was mostly people in low-skilled jobs who were losing out because of technology. Now, what did we see? And remember, I mean, think of this: globalization and technological change are shared trends. Those we are equally, all rich countries are more or less equally exposed to those trends. So you would expect, if those are the major factors, you would expect to see similar kind of trends in inequality. That we don't see at all, and that's also what he showed. You see some countries where inequality has increased a lot. You see some countries where it stayed flat for a while, even despite more economic competition, even despite the fact that there were more computers and robots and so on, stayed flat. And then all of a sudden you see an increase and it flattens off again. So you see inequality rising, if it rises, in episodes. So the picture you get, the picture you observe, is not at all consistent with the idea that globalization and technological change are driving us, all countries, inevitably towards greater inequality. If you link those increases, those episodes of changes, as he also showed for the US, to what actually happened, it's more easily often explained by changes in policies, by changes in institutions, so by things that happened in the political realm, in the realm of things that are, in theory, under our control. And Belgium is a very interesting case in that respect, because Belgium, we all know, we are a very open country. We are exposed to a lot of competition, and Belgium is one of the few countries where inequality has essentially remained flat. There's a lot of technological change here, there are a lot of computers and robots, and still we have not experienced that increase in inequality. So far the good news, in a sense, that the big story that comes out of the Gini Project is similar to what Professor Galbraith had hinted at. It's not globalization and technology, it's institutions and policies. Now for the bad news. The bad news is, and he gave some policy recommendations, like we could increase minimum wages, extend or expand social security systems in countries where they are not well expanded. But the problem is, the hard reality is, that the political constellations in place in many countries, and certainly also at the EU level, are not necessarily inclined or conducive towards instituting exactly those policies and institutions, or if they are in place, continuing them. Just to go back to the case of the US, they had elections last night, and the US is an example. I mean, inequality has increased overall, there has been some flattening, but if you think of, and the OECD has also done calculations, of the income share over the past 25, 30 years that has gone to the top incomes, it just boggles your mind. It is almost incredible. The fact that 50% of income growth over the past 25 to 30 years has gone to the top 1%, that 80% or so has gone to the top 10%, it really beggars belief. So you would think that the vast majority of Americans would vote for political parties that exactly propose that. Higher minimum wages, more social security, more redistribution, higher taxes on the rich. And what do they do? What do they end up with now? Again, Republican-controlled Congress. So that is, for me, is a bit of a sad thing to see.